first thing we're supposed to start off is that pledge allegiance to the flag, flags over by the door. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pretty down. Oh, it's heavy.
Next, we have roll call. Bruce Blatt.
Here.
Mark Eversman here, Steve Keller. Here. Vince.
Here.
Nancy.
Here.
Cindy.
Here.
Sharon Corte is not available at this time, but we do have a quorum.
Andrew Johnston, from Gateway District. Jim Fogel from Gateway District.
Peggy Hall, PPAC.
Bob Gephardt, GSED. Back there.
Nick Toscano, Joanne Spence.
Okay.
Karina Ferry.
All right, Javier should be joining us shortly. All right, next up, we will take public comment, which is we only have one at this time.
I'm at, I'm at 10,500 Karina Circle, which is at the intersection of Karina Circle and Cypress Lakes Boulevard, where the stop sign is. Between Pond 37 and Cypress Karina Circle. We have a common area to, along parallel to us on Cypress Lakes. And I have two things related to that. One is a question. We're fortunate we have a lot of heads there. And when the Marscape cuts the head, when it's in the rainy season, there's a lot of hedge. Instead of removing it, putting in a truck and taking it away, they use the mower and they just go over it back and forth and mulch it. It doesn't look that great to me. I understand nobody else really sees it that well because the hedge is blocking it. So my question is, are they allowed to do that? I know they're doing it to save money, but it's cheaper for them to do that than to dispose of it. And if they're allowed to do it, so be it. But I'm always wondering, can they do that? Can they not? And that might not be an answer you have. And I'm probably the only one that's ever said anything, but they will do that, especially when it's really hot. They'll have a pile, you know, like kids can jump in and the mower will go back and forth and all that. And, you know, it's technically it's not my ground, but I'm looking at it.
Okay, Mark Eversman, I don't know exactly how it's addressed in the contract. We'll have to look at
I
it.
don't know.
And we can let you know.
And then if it isn't allowed, who do I have to contact, or will you contact them and make?
Well, if it's not allowed, we'll tell them they're not allowed to do that anymore and that's it. But we'll let you know either way what we find in the contract.
And then related, similar to that, where my property is, I have the lift station is kind of back there and I have, so it's like an L shape. And right in that corner, they never graded it properly. And so I have like a little swale and it does not, when it rains heavy, it puddles up there, so it doesn't grow. I have basically sand. The only time I have green is in the summer when I have the weeds and I end up pulling them out. I have some pictures to show, but I don't know. I did speak with Javier about it. This might have been 6 months or so ago. And he said, oh, he's gonna bring it up to the master and see if they can grade it and whatever, so.
Your Gateway Water, right?
No, we're Fort Myers.
See, it's a city of Fort Myers owns a lift station.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm just giving you as a perspective. So like most places along Cypress Road, the hedging just goes this way. Well, I have it, it goes this way, and it's like right in that section. There's a dip, you can see it, you know,
Okay.
and then it's all, if you want to see the pictures, if not, I mean, you can see it when you go by there.
We'll go take a look at
But
it.
it's all sand. Yes. As I said, I spoke with Javier, I don't know, it was 6 months, 9 months ago, they were putting a little palm tree in right on my corner. So I said, well, come look at this. And he's like, yeah, he can see it's not right. He's gonna talk to the master, talk to, it's probably, you know, whoever, you know, but nothing happened.
Okay.
So that's my question, concern, whatever.
Bob, Whose responsibility would that area be? Do you know?
Off the top of my head,
That's a
I do not know. I would think the city of Fort Myers, because it's part of the easement, but I want to go physically look at it, because no matter who owns it, it's not acceptable.
You know, Bruce Blatt, when Vince and I did our little trash tour, like 3 weeks ago, we wandered behind that area because Vince, to his credit, got me to go out on a trash tour. And we went to that property where he's talking because it runs along Cypress. We know it had to be a common area, so we went on to what we thought was common area, which I found out was a common area. What he's talking about, it looks like a beachfront property in a common area. It's all sand. So the flooding, I recognized by the fact that it's all sand. There's no real grass there anymore. As far as the lift station, I think Vince and I could agree. We always look for privacy near lift stations. I mean, in the subdivision I live in, they're always surrounded by calusas or something. When we were standing there on this sandy area, you could clearly see the lift station from their property. So when I walk through tomorrow, I was gonna suggest putting calusas up to give them some privacy. But with that being said, with this water issue, we didn't even allow the calusas to grow properly.
But Mark, I don't think Clusius would have any problem. The one issue that we need to consider is it's not ours. It's actually the city of Fort Myers owns the lift station and.
Well, the lift station, I'd say is what, 30 yards?
Oh,
From the proper area. It's an eyesore in my mind,
Okay,
but the sand, I could vouch for, I saw the sand.
we can take a look at it.
What's your name again? Bruce, okay.
It is ours.
It is ours. Okay, we'll take a look. We're actually gonna go out tomorrow, so we can take a look at
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I've been here 10
State
years.
your name when you start talking to us, will help for
Sure.
for
You
recording.
need it now or
Yeah, just say your name before you start talking.
Nick Piscicano? Anyway, I know you've been here 10
Okay.
years and it's a problem and, well, you know what? Let me talk to
Sure.
someone that can do something.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
And this is Bob Geppert. I don't know if all of you have seen the maps, but we now have maps. And their home is right here. Here's the lift station. And it is clearly has been identified as ours
Okay,
by our attorney.
okay,
So you came to the right spot.
Good.
okay.
Nancy Smith, Bob, are the maps on the website now?
They're a work in progress.
Okay.
I believe this is available to us, but they're not complete. And that's the only reluctance. When we reached the state that we're currently in, the first step was to go to one of the, I think it's 7 areas in dispute. That was Avila. That first meeting took place last week. Avila wants to give us the easement. The attorney has drafted the language and sent it to Avila. As soon as their board approves it, it comes back. The district will approve it, and then that becomes official. But there are 6 other areas on here that are still to be determined. So the danger of putting it out there, somebody
Okay,
prints it and then says, oh, well, this is the gospel, but it really isn't quite the gospel yet.
right. So
The
no
other
gospel yet.
The other issue is there's areas that we don't have easements for that we're not sure if we want those
Okay.
either. So we need to decide among ourselves that CDD, what we want and what we want to push back on.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you have anything else, Nick?
Okay.
I don't think any other public comment at this time.
Andrew or Mark, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Not very well.
It's Chelsea O'Reilly, district manager. So I know there was a lot of talk about that lift station. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and if it is the city's lift station, we can send those pictures to their utilities department and ask for some TLC.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you forward those electronically?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's on my phone.
Oh, okay, if you could forward those, just forward them to me and then I'll forward them on to Chelsea.
And what,
Mark.Eversman 1957 @gmail.com.
all right,
And then I'll forward them to Chelsea, and if the city needs to do something, she'll
I'm
talk.
almost certain it's not on his lift station, but I was
Well-
just using that as a reference.
if it's ours, we'll take care of it. Next up is the approval of the minutes of last meeting, which I don't know how many people have read.
I have,
Are people comfortable with saying, all right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
Come on. So motioned.
Second by Cindy Watterson.
Steve Keller, second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the financial report, which Laura was able to send the end of April. Things have changed a little bit since then, but mostly in the tree trimming area is the difference. We still have money. We still have a decent amount of money, so we can continue to move forward. We have approximately, rough numbers, $100,000 where we can still go through the renovation within Pelican, so that should be more than adequate as far as what we want to do. Our budget is good on every line item at this point. We will probably max out the tree trimming part, which is $153,000, but we're just about done with all the tree trimming in here, and I approved the last of the invoices, I think, yesterday. But we still have plenty of funds in plant replacement and other landscape things. If anybody wants the details on it, like I said, this is end of April, so it's not really accurate because probably $90,000 have gone through because of the tree trimming since this. But we still have adequate funding to continue as we have been, so I'd like to keep going down that path. Now we run into items for discussion. Well, actually, if I could go ahead, Ameriscape is here and they're actually on the agenda. And I'd like to go ahead. So if they need to go ahead and leave, they would be able to do that after we've gone through that agenda item. Does anybody have an issue with going ahead to that agenda item at this time? All right, Bruce Blatt has put this on the agenda, so I'll turn it over to Bruce at this point.
Bruce Blatt, if you all saw the latest report of Ameriscape's actions, we sent out probably 3-4 weeks ago telling, how many tickets were resolved. And it just a coincidence, I guess, but every ticket was under my name, which is fine, and no reflection. In all honesty, I'm a big nut about compliance. In my previous life, if those don't know, I spent 30 years with New York PD, and I retired as a captain, so I had a lot of bodies under me that make Ameriscape look like a small operation. So I'm not picking on you guys because at the same time, every ticket was resolved that I submitted within what I consider timely fashion. So compliments to you guys for that. But what I was glaring in that report, you rate them after they satisfy the ticket. I could only give them the best rating, so they got a ton of 5s, okay? The only thing that was glaring is that there was 0 walk through the property for that particular month. And I believe as a vendor here, and because Vince and I, during our walk for trash, found a lot of unseen problems, which probably could have been picked up on a monthly walkthrough. Case in point, we found all these bubblers from the ponds. Nobody knew they were hidden behind the bushes. I addressed it with Ameriscape. I thought they were giving me a line, it's not ours, that kind of thing. But they did give me the explanation. Got to Mark, we found out it was the pond committee's responsibility. The old bubblers were thrown behind the bush, and who knows how long they've been sitting there. So a walkthrough would have discovered that a year ago, if it was there a year. So I think it's important that we hold all vendors that report to us to some accountability other than just sticking them with tickets. Okay? To have somebody walk through the property and be able to say, guys, you might not have seen that. Can you take care of it? If it's under their responsibility, so be it. If not, we'll have to deal with it. Another case in point. Along Matarita, there's, on Prado Drive, there's that berm, the famous berm. And why it's so blaring to me is, oh, I live right there. And this has been ongoing for 6 years. Who's responsible for the berm? And here's, it could have been timed better. Just, what's today? A Thursday, Tuesday. The Matarita 2 Landscape Committee did their weekly, their monthly walkthrough with Greenscape. I just happened to be pulling out of my house and saw their manager walking around with the landscape committee for Matarita 2. At the same time, I have reported a problem with a sprinkler behind my neighbor's house who's gonna start building a pool. He's up north. He asked me, Bruce, can you see what you can do to help me with this dead spot? So here comes the Ameriscape irrigation guys fulfilling this ticket. There was the Greenscape manager. Everybody was pointing a finger at each other. Ameriscape said it's not ours. Greenscape says it wasn't ours. So had Ameriscape guy put on a test on the sprinklers. These are our responsibility. Then I said, the Greenscape, can you turn yours on? Your responsible area. Sure enough, it was Greenscapes. We resolved an issue that's been going on for years. So I think there's a need for more synergy within the community. Greenscape can't work in their silo. Ameriscape can't work in their silo. One thing was so obvious, the Greenscape person didn't want to address the Ameriscape person. They're two people working on a common problem. And I had to be the intermediary. I was like the translator. And there was no need for a translator. All this could have been avoided if we could have gotten the president of HOA to get his Greenscape right there, because that's not the responsibility of this committee. And we could have asked the Ameriscape to meet with them. And if we had to have an intermediary, so be it. But it got resolved, a problem that has existed as long as I've owned my house. So I just think there's more need for synergy and less silos. There's too many silos in this place. Another issue, I think, the bidding of the bids, as you all know, I gave a reasoning for awarding the bid to Ameriscape last meeting, in that I felt it was important to keep it in-house. Ameriscape's on the property often. I felt they'll take care of their own work at the same time, because it would only reflect on them if their plants didn't live, or, the maintenance was poor on it. I think the bidding process has to be a little more apparent or more obvious. In my previous life also, I was involved with bidding out things. There was always an opening of the bids in a public forum. And at that time, I think as a committee, we could question anybody submitting a bid at that time to hold them maybe to a higher standard. But going back to the fact that the reasoning behind my support of awarding the bid to Ameriscape was I wanted to make sure the job was done right. And now we're having issues with some of the monuments that have just been redone. It seems as though Ameriscape wants to keep their hands off those monuments because that landscape was being done by another vendor. Ameriscape, the vendor for our common areas or not? As you previously heard before, Javier walked in, I gave them, gold stars, but at the same time, let's call a spade a spade. We are here to beautify the community. They should have that same mindset as the vendor of our landscape, regardless of who put it in. If it's in a HOA area, that's not their problem. But if it's on a gateway service area, they should be reporting to us. We shouldn't be reporting to them. So that's basically what I think, number one, we should insist, and here again, I have to ask Javier if it's in the contract, but I think it's very important we have this monthly walkthrough. You know, I'd be willing to take it upon myself when I'm here. But at the same time, gotta stop with these borders, because it's just hurting us more than helping us. And that's really the bottom line, and, you know, I saw it firsthand, it was unbelievable, within 5 minutes, the thing got resolved.
So this is Nancy Smith, comment and then a question, please. We used a different supplier to do the monuments in Pistoia. And to date, just as another reference, Ameriscape has been nothing but helpful in ensuring watering and maintaining those plants. So I'm not seeing it there. So maybe there are instances. And then my question is, I sit on the Prado Landscape Committee as the chair, co-chair, and I do get a customer service report, so I see what's going on in Prado, but I have no idea for this where to find the customer service report if I want to read it.
I think it was sent to Mark, if I'm not.
I'd like to make that, just read on that. And I don't know heard the whole history, but one of the things that I'm gonna say as far as. you know, who does the
What's your name?
Javier.
Javier.
It's being recorded, so.
As far as who does the landscaping, doesn't make any difference. You're right, I mean, it should all be maintained because it's a common area. The one thing that I always like to make a request is, if you know that you're doing a landscaping, don't wait till the day that you need extra water to report it. Make this request 3 days before, because I've always asked, we need at least 48 hours to be able to comply with your service so that it gets adequately done. And if you do it on a Friday, there's no way that, you know, I got people running around trying to finish other things. So it makes it very challenging, not impossible, very challenging to get somebody to program additional water. And this goes, you know, for any monument. Doesn't, you know, especially if it's not, it's on GSCDD land, as far as, I mean, for the water, because then I gotta get an irrigation tank to take care of that. If it's on the TOR system, I can take care of that myself. I don't need to reach out to anybody else.
I appreciate what you're saying, but in the case, Vince and I Vince really got stuck taking care of the Casella monument because there was a battle of posturing there with the different residents, but I put in a ticket, it was either Monday or Tuesday, with the explanation that the HOAs came to us and said it was promised by the vendor to be finished by Friday. So we did give that notice. And so, not to get into a match with you over it, but there was put in place a ticket.
And to address narrator to monument. Thank you so much, my request on that. When I got involved into that, it turns out that, first of all, the monument for Margarita 2 happens to be tied in with one of the houses. That particular homeowner previously, I think she's in the middle of selling the house, but
Right.
she addressed that directly with us, that basically anytime we run water for the annuals when they were, you know, in rotation, that her whole house will get soaked. And she was correct, because for some reason, they tied in the monument with her house.
Now the question is to Bob. We
Real
just got
quick,
back.
we have Sherry Brusco on the line. She had a comment.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sherry Brusco. I'm with Treviso Board of Directors as well as the Landscaping Committee here. We also in the past have had some problems with our previous vendor, especially with our park here at the community park with a lot of things that were promised and never even looked at. The grass was dead and trees or bushes are you know, falling apart and dead, and there is an issue there, and I just want to commend, I think it was Bruce, for saying that there needs to be a quality check. There is none. I know we have an eyebrow pencil that a lot of the sprinkler heads are off, and nobody from Ameriscape has even addressed it. Our landscaper, our new landscaper had saw that and wondered if it was their responsibility, and we said no, it was Ameriscape. So yeah, there is no accountability, which I think needs to be addressed with Ameriscape. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
But this is Bruce again, and Javier didn't hear at the beginning, so I'll just restate it, not to be redundant. They have been, I think, pretty receptive to the tickets. Just me being me, I didn't trust the Merscape to do it. You know, they said they would do it. Bruce went out and checked to make sure. I put in a ticket just this week about a bubbler, I think it was, on one of the grounded stumps, along Prado or several. Bruce went out and checked to make sure they really shut it off. Okay, so I compliment John, their fast service, which I will beat them up as much as I can, but I gotta give them compliments too. One other issue, if we're on accountability, since it was brought up, you missed, I think it's real important. We have those walkthroughs at least once a month. But again, I picked on the litter issue that my friend Vince got me into picking up garbage on the common areas. We came up with 3 industrial sized bags of garbage. Some were workers and some certainly weren't, because I don't think they drink $100 bottles of bourbon. Okay, but yesterday, Mark saw, Mark was out for a bike ride and I just ran into him and I was walking to town center. I asked Javier to have all the application signs removed before they get mowed over and shredded. To my amazement, there was one of the application guys. He just placed the sign down on Cypress. Came across towards me. It was an old sign, maybe 2 days old. He picked it up. So I know they are paying attention. And so I think we're partially there for the accountability, but there's still room for improvement. And I think part of that would be those monthly walkthroughs.
Mark, okay. Bob Gephardt, you hit the nail on the head with why this group is formed.
And that's why I joined it.
In the past, I've had conversations with Javier. He was dying to get resident. He was dying to have us participate in this process. And now we are finally getting there. If we give him the bullets, believe me, he'll get the job done. With respect to the irrigation, that one where it's tied to somebody's house, well, clearly that's screwed up.
But I'm not sure it is.
Well,
Because
but it's tied into a person's home. We gotta fix that. That's gotta be fixed. Our monument's gonna be a standalone. We shouldn't be flooding the resident's house. And these are the kind of details, like the problem behind the lift station, that we've never, as a community, tried to look at before. But now with Mark's team and direction, there are opportunities to improve.
This is Mark. Now, obviously, the monument on Matarita 2 was not set up appropriately for
Correct.
irrigation. Whose responsibility would that have been?
Well, at this time, all irrigation issues are PPCA. However, we will be working cooperatively and cooperatively with them to get them ironed out. I would like us still to spearhead it so it gets resolved.
Well, here's my question. Everything is set to go. Javier has gone out and looked. It's like $800 to separate off this house. Who should that invoice go to?
The answer is, and I'm not trying to be evasive. If it goes to PPCA, it comes out of our dues. If it goes to GFCDD, we got the money. For $800, let's just fix the problem within our budget.
All right,
If it gets to be abusive, obviously, but it's still our asset. Bottom line is, excuse me, it is our asset. And for minor things like that, let's go for expediency. $800 and an $800,000 budget is not going to break us.
one, this Bruce, now that we have these maps, there are 2 houses almost mirrored each other on either side of that monument. There was, I'm the original owner in that area. I'm probably about 5, 6 houses away from where this issue is. It was always the question of responsibility of that firm, which it kind of sits on. Greenscape here against it, and it's a big area between the curb line and the house line on both sides of that entrance. So it was always, is it Greenscape's responsibility to mow that area, or is it Ameriscape's? So I don't know for sure if it's done.
Nor do I.
Right.
Yeah, I thought maybe the maps would finally clarify it.
This is Mark. Right now, 15 feet is kind of the accepted easement through most of the community. And you will find that the problem with the berms is they're bigger than 15 feet. So you end up with a line right in the middle of the berm as to whose responsibility it is. And that's what we hope to rectify in the
But the
future.
sprinklers that go on that feed this monument runs side, along the side in this big patch of grass.
Right.
So it's like a side yard sprinkler, not the rare sprinklers that go like would hit the L&I for argument's sake, but runs in this big area, which I'm not sure if it's a common area or not. That's before
Well,
we spend the money, I just want to. make sure
That would
we
go
know.
to either the HOA or the PPCA. That's definitely not ours at this time. But that doesn't say we're not gonna take care of the sprinkling system that goes through there. So, and Javier, I don't know if everybody here knows, he has said he would dedicate a crew to go around, I think, every Friday to do trash, refuse pickup, branches, whatever is laying down within the landscape that should not be there. So I don't know if you've started that yet, or if it's,
We actually currently doing it for all of the communities. So they would do basically have to ask. Along the common areas.
Okay.
So
so hope,
that fence, I'm not doing it.
I'll find a new friend.
so hopefully going forward, the appearance of the community will be enhanced because they're gonna try and stay on top of that. And hopefully the residents do not keep creating this problem that needs to be addressed.
Mark, I have another public comment. Andrea, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, this is Andrea Pitts. I'm also in Treviso. I have asked the Ameriscape workers why they don't pick up the trash. They said that's not in their contract. They also wouldn't pick up the palm fronds that were in the common areas. They ran over them with their lawnmower, but would not pick them up and then just left them there. Those are some of the things that we observed. So I think a quality check is needed badly. Thank you.
Yep, we're in agreement with that. Thank you. All right,
I'm pretty much.
Javier, anything that you
No, I
just
mean,
want to say? I mean, about anything?
I've always welcomed walkthroughs. I think, two set of eyes is better than one. Things are gonna see different things, different people by having a group of people are gonna be able to see things different than what I'm looking at. So anybody's opinion is definitely welcome. And, if there's a gray area, I think we have the board to refer back to, or, reach out to whoever we need to get clarification on it. But there's definitely, I mean, to your question on the irrigation, there's definitely, boundaries where this belongs to Margarita, this belongs to the commons, no doubt, there's definitely those gray areas. And they've always been there, we just gotta, I guess, make come to an agreement and, okay, this up to here is yours, because even some of the current irrigation that's on the entrances is watering the houses. So how do you differentiate one from the other? It's sometimes challenging.
Any other questions or comments for Ameriscape at this time?
Peggy Hall, can we get back to the bubbler trash? Where was that and have you
I think
approached
it
those?
was at Palm 37. What had happened, we were doing our walkthrough and we just wandered behind some hedges. I think it's along Cypress between Prado and the Carina entrance. I guess that's what, Palm 36, 37, whatever.
I can send you a picture of it.
Yeah, oh, I have it on my phone before we leave. And it was high. It was so obvious they were the problem. And sure enough, I put a ticket in blaming Ameriscape. It wasn't, they explained, they go, those were marked, might expanded on it too. We thought they were pond buffers. And that's what Ameriscape basically, it wasn't our trash.
Were they disconnected?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It was just a pile
it's gotta be 20 of them sitting. in
a pile of junk.
Pile. And Mark, I think, had the pond committee,
Yeah.
correct? So
I
I don't know if
contacted
it's still sitting there, to be honest with you.
All right, anything else for Mayor Street? Like to thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
All right, we can go ahead and take, front monument sign rehabilitation, which Nancy Smith is, heading that up for us.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Nancy
Did you want to
Smith.
go back to item for discussion?
Well, I thought we would catch that last.
Okay, that's fine.
If that's all right. Yep.
Excuse the small pictures if you guys can share, but I didn't want to have to buy more printer ink. Okay, so originally, Mark had asked me if I would take a look at a potential redesign of the front monument up at Pelican. And I went up there and I looked at it, and then I also met with Andrew. And really what I thought originally is it would be more cost effective to repair and paint because a redesign would not match the other front structures. So next I met with Jennifer Lewis and we decided to go up there together. Since the GSCDD does pay our management company to manage some of the GSCDD operations. We're both aware that the GSCDD is going to be hiring a maintenance person, but we are in total agreement that if we're going to repair, patch, and paint up front, that it should be done by a professional. This is opinions, by the way. I also spoke to Doug Zanter and Jennifer about the two fountains up front, which unless you're on top of them, you can't really see their fountains, okay?
Right.
They're so small. So they're working on potentially getting larger engines to drive those a little higher. Jen and I also met with Messery Painting, Frank Cassell. Okay, so he informed us that the natural stone, and I want to give you some pictures here. If you look at picture, for example, the one all the way to the right on the first row, that piece there is natural stone, and a lot of this is natural stone. And you can see it's very rusted, okay, very rusted, probably from the irrigation. Frank said he could use rust off and seal the stone so the water from the sprinkler heads wouldn't rust it as rapidly, but he said we should not paint natural stone. And a lot of this monument is natural stone, not all of it. On the wood trestles, we discussed pressure washing and staining. We could also perhaps put some vibrant landscape plantings in front of the monument or even behind. There's a huge spot that's open, okay, where it would make it pop, and maybe add some flowering vines to the trestles on either side. There are also two palms in picture number middle to the right. And there's another one here, I'm sure. But on both sides of this monument, there's a palm sitting behind the trestles that we both think should just be removed. It's just hanging there and just little pieces are hanging over the monument itself. In addition, the front part of the fence, which is picture number middle 2, that also needs to be cleaned. And that really is just, if you see, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 panels along as you come into Pelican Preserve, but it's not really facing forward to tree line. So we felt that should be done as well. So basically where we are is we are waiting for Troy at Sherwin-Williams to do a scope of work, and then Frank will provide an estimate to Jen and I, and I'll bring it forward. The other thing to mention, and Jen mentioned this to me, is she was under the impression that in 2024, 2025, we may want to redesign the entire front monuments and all the structures to the gatehouse so that they match. Therefore, it made no sense to do anything this year, but perhaps patch, repair, and paint. So those are our suggestions at this point.
This is Mark. My opinion, I think that's the prudent way to go at this time. And I think it could make a big difference just to update the color scheme that's up there already. There's definitely vines that can be planted that would add to the pergolas that are overhead. I guess I'm disappointed we can't paint more than just a few areas. I don't know what's all natural stone, but we don't
Yeah,
need to get into it right now.
Okay, because I can point out a few things if you want.
And what I'm going off of, if you go by Colonial's entrances, they have repainted theirs and theirs just looks so much better than, my opinion, old Florida. And they just basically brought in some grays, some more colors of that nature. And if we could just do the same, just to bring us up more in line with the 21st century, I think it could go a long way without spending a lot of money. I also really like Jen's idea of upgrading the pump size. See if we can get some more height out of those fountains, because that would make them much more noticeable and I think aesthetically pleasing. And the one in the middle and the median hasn't worked for a while. I don't know exactly what's wrong with that one, but that one's just a small fountain that goes out into a holding area.
But just for clarity, for temporarily, there is no recommendation to change colors at this point because it will, where we can paint, it won't match the other monuments up front. So if we are going to do a redesign in 2024, 2025, it would make more sense to change the colors on everything at the same time.
I agree.
Okay.
You can't just cherry pick certain areas.
Right.
It's got to be cohesive.
Okay.
Okay, so, wait, this Bruce, so is this our responsibility, the maintenance or the making of the monuments of this? What is the, I'm a big oversight guy, so last year they had some painting done, you know, the trellis.
Yeah.
I watched this poor woman work in the heat, hand paint them, but on some of those columns, they caulked the seams and never painted over the caulking,
Correct.
which you might have seen.
Yes.
So would we be responsible saying, hey, guy, you missed the spot? You know, is that under our realm?
Initially, I did not think so. I have since been informed that we should take that on because quite truthfully, it's kind of an orphan area. And it obviously needs to be landscaped as well. So as long as we're doing that part of it, it's, especially with what Nancy has talked about doing, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
This is the point.
This is whoever repaired some of the columns did a really, I'll say,
Be
poor
honest.
job. And
Be
so
honest.
there's a lot of eyes on it now. The other thing I thought was important for the GSCDD to think about is, you know, the monuments throughout Pelican Preserve are also getting old. And the question in my mind, and this is just me thinking, is, are those going to be handled all at once by the GSCDD, or are we going to do what we did with the landscaping piece of the monuments and say to folks, okay, if you want to update your monument, you have to ask, we'll give you X amount of dollars, but you have to stay within this color scheme. So, I mean, it's just something to think about as we move forward in the future.
My opinion is they're ours.
Okay.
And they should match.
Okay.
So we can't let each individual HOA pick their
Okay.
own color, even if they stay within a certain band. So my opinion, once we decide what colors, if we're going to change, we want to go forward with, then it would be up to us. And I would be in hopes that potentially, depending on what skill set the maintenance person is that we have access to, you give them 25 gallons of the rust off stuff and several gallons of paint and let them work their way through the community because as Bob will attest, Monticello paints their own right now. I mean,
Has
it's
for
not
20
rocket
years.
science. So it should be something that a normal maintenance person could do, even if they don't have a huge skill set.
And I would, Bob Gephardt again, I would hope we would never consider changing any colors without the full approval of the PPCA.
Of course.
No.
We control the asset, absolutely, and we need to maintain it. Totally agree with
This has to
that.
be a joint venture
But-
with us.
Keep in mind, we still need to make sure we're in lockstep with the total community association,
Sure.
even though the asset's ours.
And Nancy Smith, and I bring this up only because I know we're going to be going into budget season. And the question is, you know, do you want to address the front first and then have some kind of schedule 23, 24, 25, 26 on how you want to manage these? Just something I wanted to throw out there.
Okay. Any other questions for Nancy? We appreciate the work you've done on
It's
this.
my pleasure. Keep going.
I came in late, excuse me, but are we gonna convert all is the goal to convert all of the monuments to trickle down rather than spray it?
Well,
And I,
Ameriscape left and I had asked them to do that on the Verona monument. And it hasn't been done, so I put in that request again to get that done because I want to make sure that the trickle is going to adequately water those areas before you wholesale everybody and all of a sudden you find out you've got an issue with lack of water in some of the mines.
in ponds, when we've done initiatives like that, they typically would do a pilot.
And-
Three or four areas and just.
Yeah, Verona is one pilot, and I just want to see what kind of coverage we get after we do that. And to my knowledge, because I haven't seen the invoice on it yet, Ameriscape has not completed that one yet.
Because that'll take care of the rust. Water spray, the mineral.
Yeah, if we go to the trickle effect, at least on the HOA monuments, that would alleviate the rust issue on those monuments. So we don't have to keep cleaning or painting them.
Ceiling. Cleaning and sealing.
This is Bruce. That's one thing I should have addressed. I started touching on it, in Ameriscape. They really putting their best foot forward here again with the vendor that wasn't theirs work. Are they creating more work for themselves by saying, well, they gave Mark an idea what would resolve the issue at Matarita too. It was a fundraiser for them. Was there a better solution to the problem? Or is that the only solution they'll give?
Well,
That's
I
a
questioned
big
him.
concern.
And just to separate off that house, which I think everybody's
If-
needs to be
If it's
done,
true.
what he proposed, because I questioned him on, and he said, this is what has to be done in order to make that monument stand on its own.
You should take a closer look based on the mapping, if there's such a map to cover that area to prove the point that it truly is attached to that house, or it
Well,
was just done wrong and it's really common area, not the homeowner area. That's what I think. It's a vast piece of a corner of lot. So I'm not sure how much of that is, say, for argument's sake, is it on their water meter? The house owner's water meter,
so you're questioning whether or not the irrigation is actually the
homeowners
homeowners, or if it's just the common area that the homeowner believes
is
is
theirs.
theirs.
True.
Okay.
Especially if there's a change in ownership there, as he stated. So that's my concern.
This is Bob again, but in old Pelican, everything other than, the Matarita, our water's free, our irrigation. Generally, we don't pay for it by the gallon. We will sometime in the future. It was never an issue for WCI. They didn't care. They just did the cheapest thing. Now we're gonna go back and fix it. But in the future, it will become an issue. Because if I own the home and I'm watering your monument, something's gonna be wrong.
Oh, I agree 100%. I wouldn't want.
But right now,
my
there's-
bill going up to.
Yeah, right now, there's no cost involved.
Oh, I agree.
We just need to fix it. There will be more, I'm sure. This is just one.
But that was part of that whole thing with Greenscape and Ameriscape. It was like a battle of
Yep.
the mowers. They refused to recognize each other's responsibility. And it was just such a fluke. They both showed up at the same time. And I actually, no joke, they wouldn't even look at each other. So I go, is this yours? And he goes, well, I'll put a test on. I went to the front of the house because the Greenscape was afraid to go onto the homeowner's box to turn it on. I said, I'll go and do it. So I went into the ground, turned it on, and it was so obvious it was Greenscapes. Then they finally resolved it. Okay, Bruce, we see the problem, we'll take care of it. Right in front of James Wilkins was there, the president of Matarita too. And, he agreed. He said, okay, Greenscape, we're gonna hold you accountable to fix this. So it's just that these two silos didn't want to meet, and
Absolutely.
it's getting ridiculous. And there's other, examples I could come across, I think it's, why didn't any of the major landscapers in here bid on the jobs? You didn't hear anything from Mainscape, you didn't hear anything from Greenscape, because there's an unwritten rule. You don't tread on my turf, I don't tread on yours.
No, we had a number.
It's not them.
Well, I don't know about them, but it's out to the.
No, I'm just saying, I know there were
Okay.
multiple offers.
They were requested.
Yeah, they
And
were,
they-
they
and
were
they-
offered a chance to bid.
And they didn't, because here again, my background suggests there is some kind of collusion, and I'll go on record as saying that I've seen it in other areas. The garbage carting industry in New York was very controlled. I was involved. I was the head of the gang squad in Brooklyn. I saw it all the time, and that's why they have RICO laws. And I think that we're close to, you could see, she wouldn't touch, she goes, I'm not testing Ameriscape stuff. And Ameriscape said, I'm not touching Greenscape stuff. And there's an understanding, you leave me alone, I'll leave you guys alone.
Andrea,
that's-
did you still have a comment?
Yeah, I do on that particular topic.
Okay.
Ameriscape, I don't know how many people know that they were our previous vendor, and they were our vendor for 16 years. We brought in another vendor because they were not performing. We asked them to perform. I asked them for accountability, just like you guys have done. And they turned around and gave us a 30-day notice to quit because we tried to hold them accountable. And as far as the irrigation goes, they threatened us with that they're the keeper of the keys if we chose to not go with them as our vendor. Now, that was something that really took me to heart. Same thing as like the New York, garbage people, it's a fight, but they have put the fear of God into every vendor in here. And that's why I just want to let you know that. And they weren't willing to work with any vendor. They were actually not working with them until we forced them to work with them. And that's my comment. Thank you.
I think it was a form of collusion, I agree.
We're kind of getting off topic.
But I wish he was still, I could have said it right to him. And the woman who, for Greenscape, I really like, she's very responsive. And I could just tell from her responses, that we don't deal with their crap, they don't touch our crap. And we can't in a community like this with so many different vendors in the HOAs, where it may fringe on that common area, that we have these infighting battles. I just think it's not productive to the running of our community or the beautification of it. If they're gonna start,
I
and
really
don't
don't
think we-
disagree, but that's not within the purview of
Well,
the assets we're supposed to be maintaining.
no, true, but I think.
But they do need to work
bidding-
together.
I
They
think
need
our
to work
bidding
with each other.
process isn't.
Hold on.
I'm sorry,
You wanna
I
allow
just said
another public comment?
they
Sure.
do need to work together and work with each other and not have some sort of a hierarchy, that, this is not my thing or your thing. They need to work together. And that's the bottom line. And if Ameriscape doesn't want to do that, then we've got a problem.
This is Bob again, that's an opinion. That's all it is. With all due respect, we don't know that they wouldn't work with anybody, and I'd really like not to go there, but we don't need to go there. Let's stay focused on our assets.
Okay, any other items we can go into the public items now, which I have a couple things I'd like to mention. Obviously, Ameriscape has started the first major planting that we all have worked through. I guess I'm pleasantly surprised the size of the trees that they have brought in.
They're nice.
The bougainvilleas are a little small. They will grow. They should grow. Please be patient. Again, we're going into the rainy season, which is where we kind of timed it this way. So I think we're going to be pretty good on these. If anybody questions, I've already anticipated what negative feedback we may get on some of this. And the Christmas palms that we placed are only 6.5 feet tall. To go to the next size up would be 2.5 times the amount to gain about 1 foot. My opinion, it's not worth the money. These are gonna grow. I mean, you can get the rainy season, they're gonna take off. So otherwise, I think things are looking pretty good. The corner Bruce asked about at Cypress Grove and Pelican, where we only took the front 20 feet of the bougainvilleas out. They will do a hard cut on the remaining bougainvilleas. They should flush out again and look good. We did not forget to take them out. They were supposed to be left there, so we're in hopes that we can salvage them. The other item I wanted to bring up is Ameriscape suggested to me that they do a really hard cut in the front where we have the monument and we have those fire bush that circle all the way around in front.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with what I'm talking about. They would like to do a really hard cut on those, and they're of the opinion that if they do that and hit them with a shot of fertilizer, they should flush out again and look good. Right now, they're getting so leggy. You're almost getting to the point where do we take them out and plant something new? But they think they have a chance to come back. They said they're really fairly healthy. And they think they'll come back out. And I'd like to ask them to do that. That would be part of their normal maintenance contract, so we would not be charged for it. But any place that we can get existing bushes just to do a hard cut, regenerate, not pay anything for it, I think that would be to our advantage. Worst case, if they don't come out the way you want, we take them out because they looked bad anyway. So I don't think we have anything to lose to try this. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Steve Keller, they do that on the golf course. I mean, they take them down to 16 inches
Yeah.
and they're back in 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
looking beautiful. Yeah.
So we'd like to go ahead with having Ameriscape do that. And again, they said they would perform that as part of their normal maintenance contract. And so we will be doing it up front. There are a few other areas where the fire bush is starting to look bad, where it's still in reasonable sun, that I think we can take down and have a chance to bring them back. And they will do so with some of the bougainvilleas as well. So any questions on that at this time?
Nope.
They should finish the planting today, I believe.
Okay.
The next thing I wanted to comment on is where we are on monuments. This year, we have paid for Matarita 2, Casella, Monticello, Pistoia, Catanzaro, and still in the hopper where we have allocated funds are Solero, Siena, Carina, and Treviso. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? We still have funds available. And I think most of the HOAs that have done theirs, or Vince has done them, they've been very complimentary of how things are turning out. So
I do have one question. Vince Pagetto, the 2,500 that's been allotted for each cul-de-sac, each monument, whichever way you want to use it.
each HOA.
Yeah, that's without me doing the tear outs for free. It's really slim money. You almost have to cut corners because we're just chewing up the money if you're putting mature, nice, bigger type of plants. Wondering if we could up the 2,500.
It was up from 2,000 to 2,500.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Just Casella itself, I hit the vendor that I hired, he hit 1,500 just in material.
There's no prohibition about how much Casella would like to chip in.
No, I understand that, but when you get to a bigger cul-de-sac, 2,500,
I understand.
like
We
Solero,
have the same thing with Aviano. It's like a little park.
yeah, 2,500 won't, it's not gonna do it.
And I guess at this point, we only get so much money. And if you start allocating more money, then that means fewer HOAs
Yeah.
can take advantage
Yeah.
of it. And at this point, I'd like them, well, Portofino, basically, I think ours ran like $7,000.
Yeah.
We got $2,000 for it, and we paid the 5 out of our own budget, and that's always an option for an HOA. It just depends on
Well,
what you want.
Solero, I haven't even started ours, and
It
they've
really
already.
tells you how much the neighbors want to change it.
Well, Solero actually last meeting, and I was up in Canada, and I was on the phone with the meeting, they upped it, they gave me 2,000 more.
Great. That's. And I'm not real familiar with Solera, but I think Nancy headed up the ones in Prado, and I think they're pretty happy with the results they got. Again, they're not huge, but the funding was more than adequate. In
More than
fact, they redid them and then they had some money left over to enhance them even a little bit further, so.
And the one way back in Pistoia,
Yeah.
it's not as big as a park, but it's a pretty big circle.
Oh, it is, yeah.
You know, so, and I think the other thing that helped was the multiple bids. Which Ameriscape did bid on, and when asked why they didn't get the job, was it money or plants, amount of plants? I said, yes.
Well.
So
I
we
mean,
got a bang for the buck with if you're interested with Callaway Landscaping.
Well, I got a bid just to do the tear out of our cul-de-sac,
Mhm.
and that would take 50% of what we had to spend on plants.
Okay.
So that's why I'm gonna do the tear out.
Yep.
There you go.
Bruce, question on the budget, because unfortunately I got saddled with the Matarita 2 monument because the guy who secured the vendor is up north. So I've been sending him pictures, and so it's become a nightmare for me, to be honest with you. So he's not happy with some of the selection of plants that the guy used. He came in under budget. He already submitted his invoice for Gateway. So there's, according to this Jack Pierce, there's like $200-300 left. Can the vendor, because I promised I'd bring it up today, would the vendor submit a second invoice?
Yes.
Okay,
And that's exactly what Nancy did in Prado. It's up to 2,500 cap. So the funds are allocated for it as long as they do it before October, because that's my budget year, our budget year.
that's his problem.
Any other question on the monument cul-de-sac?
I guess I have one more question.
Sure.
This is Nancy. So I think I heard you say that you still have money left in the budget for the cul-de-sacs. I may have misunderstood. If you do, as we get toward the end of the year and no one has requested this money, can an HOA, such as yours, come back in and say, okay, we haven't spent this money, no one's requested it, can we ask for more at this point?
The only reason we have money left over right now is because the CDD allocated an additional 20,000. Otherwise, we would have burned through all of it. According to Bob, I will be allowed to carry over budget money into
You
next.
never lose a dollar.
Yeah.
I
If you
understand.
don't spend it this year,
Okay, so
it'll
at this-
dedicated to you next year.
at this point, with the number of requests I'm getting, I'm hesitant to give anybody additional funding before everybody else gets a kick at the cat, because I've got a feeling next year, we're probably gonna start deferring people. Gotta wait till the following year before we're gonna have adequate funds
Okay.
again. And again, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 this year. Well, we've got in the hopper or done. And I think previous years, if they did 1 or 2,
Two is a lot.
it was considered a big deal. So at this point, I would definitely be very hesitant to allocate more funding for others. Because and they all talk.
Yep.
And as soon as you do it for one, they're gonna be lined up at your door with their hand out.
Okay.
And that's what started this. They found out money was available to redo them and they started lining up.
Fair enough answer.
Any other items for open discussion? Vince?
I call them your rainbow trees.
Yeah.
Are they gonna stake those?
Yes.
We came home last night from Tampa, we were admiring.
Javier said they would be staked.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have an agenda where you're gonna bring up, this is Bob again, the design proposal that Gateway had, that we sent you, the freebie. For the front entrance monuments.
Well,
Is that an agenda item today or?
Yeah, I think that was what I talked about, right?
yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
Okay.
maybe you stepped out. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be quiet. Thank you.
All right.
But they did not discuss the new design, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, I was referring to the
Yeah.
opportunity possible to consider refreshing our entrance monument
Yeah, and,
with an outside design.
and Nancy went over that in
Okay.
quite a bit of detail. And end result is, it sounds like the PPCA is also considering a major color change. And we would prefer to, again, refresh what we have, clean up, get it working better, clean up, things like that, add landscaping. But not try and piecemeal our part versus now we don't match the other part. Yeah, so we need to work with the PPCA And it sounds like they're budgeting that for either next year or the following year to do a major redesign.
And there is some feedback funding to assist in that.
Right. And we
Right, but-
will utilize some of that.
Yeah, just for clarity, this year, we're just gonna refresh,
Okay.
right? Clean up and
That's
refresh.
a long,
Right.
long term.
Yeah, yep.
Take down what's there or work with what we have.
Well, if we're gonna do a complete redesign, we would have to get a lot of different ideas and suggestions as far as strategy for the entire front, right?
Mhm.
So
We might be.
that's an open question.
Yeah.
It's an open question. Yeah.
But Bruce, there is active consideration, Bobby, there is active consideration to reduce our present and our footprint at Tree Line and Colonial.
Mhm.
So like, right now, they think they have fountains there, maybe we're no longer gonna maintain those fountains, because they're very expensive. We'll just turn the water off, all the way up to selling of the land, that's another possibility that Carol Panko is advocating. So somewhere between doing everything and doing nothing is kind of where we are. But the most refresh that I think the community is interested in the Tree Line and Pelican Reserve Boulevard.
Correct.
Not Colonial.
Any other questions or comments at this time? In that case, I'm sorry, if someone came in, do you,
It's a straw.
oh,
Hi, Nance.
did you have anything you wanted to? Okay,
He's been and gone.
he was here, all right. I don't,
I'll try and call him.
okay, we're gonna meet tomorrow to do a walk around and to see what our next steps would be in here. And then we will still have our
Now,
meeting.
sorry, this is Andrew. Is that still happening?
It is. I've been told by Bob to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
This is Cindy. What time is it and where?
9 o'clock at the garden. Bob has advised us that we can go ahead with tomorrow and he will.
My suggestion is, I understand that there's some concern about whether the legitimacy of it in terms of sunshine. And we need to address that, and there's a meeting tomorrow with Tony to do that. But since we've already done this twice before, let's just continue tomorrow, even if it's wrong, but we'll continue until we figure out the right path and how to do it. We'll figure out a way to do it legally that everybody's happy. But at the 11th hour, I just think it would be inappropriate to cancel it. Let's just muddle through like we have in the other two until we get it resolved. I do understand it is could be a contentious issue, so we'll get that resolved. But yeah, let's continue with the walk around tomorrow until.
Okay,
Okay, and we do have our normal meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of June. And I know Bruce will be gone. You'll be gone, so we'll have to send out a question as to whether or not we will have a quorum here, because as I understand it, you have to have a quorum physically present to have a meeting, or can.
Yeah, I would think it's the same as any other meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we can have that you physically have to be here.
Correct.
Other can call in and become a part of it, but you can't hold a meeting without it.
we need three,
You're
right?
exactly right.
You have to have three, we have 6 on our,
Chelsea, are you on? What is our quorum number?
We're a group of 6.
This is Georgia. If you have 6 on the committee, you need 4 present
Yeah.
physically.
Okay.
When he was calling in a lot.
yeah, but you can't, calling in doesn't make you a part.
Right.
So if we do have the 4 of us that I think are year-long residents, we could still have a meeting. So basically Cindy, Nancy, Steve, if you're not gonna be there, we will have to cancel that meeting.
I'll be there.
I should be there.
All right, at this time, we will plan on having that meeting unless something changes for one of you, and you're obviously welcome to call in.
Thank you, Georgia.
All right, any other items to discuss at this time? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. It's Pajero.
Why were they reluctant?
I didn't lose step on
Do I
anybody.
have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Nancy Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, fuck, everything.